Chapter 6. Roberto Assagioli on Psychosynthesis and the Act of Will. By Martin User August, 2020. Introduction. In this paper, edited from old blog posts of mine, I deal concisely and informally with the fascinating route from wish to reality. There have been quite some authors who have been writing and lecturing about this, especially in New Age circles, the law of attraction hype. However, I draw my material from other sources. Roberto Assagioli, the Italian psychiatrist who laid down the foundation for psychosynthesis, and also from the perennial tradition. This lays the foundation for healing of one's broken self, and also for the world at large, if enough people will follow this route. In the concluding remarks, I will say a bit more on this topic. I am especially interested in Assagioli's work Act of Will, in which he presents the steps or phases of the process of active will. Note that I am not dealing with the law of attraction stuff, because it is far too egocentric of a nature. It is all about satisfying personal, often materialistic goals. Precisely stuff that is killing our habitat. The question that is often forgotten in this respect is, are my wishes good for society as a whole? Do they help to make the world a better place, sustainable, to say the least, or am I merely indulging in fantasies and wishful thinking? Not to mention the fact that some wishes may not be very healthy for the individual concerned or not in alignment with the deeper layers of the psyche. On a deeper level, one could say that wholeness of mind and psychosynthesis has to do with a natural process of bringing one's capabilities to expression and realizing one's potential for the greater good. Integration of elements of the psyche/self are involved here. Will is one of the forces that are involved in that. Phases of the act of will. Will is a most interesting topic to research. Every one of us has to some degree experience with the act of will and can do experiments in this field. The process of active will is very complex. It has been described by Roberto Assagioli in his book Act of Will. I cannot deal with it here at length. I will mention the steps or phases involved in the will process, however. Note that some fluidity is involved in this process, as stages or phases may overlap somewhat, and may transition into each other gradually. There will be some loops between stages, going back and forth. The point of decision is usually a clear point in time, however. Reversely translated from my Dutch copy of Assagioli's book, we have 1. Goal or purpose, based on valuation, motivation, and intent. 2. Deliberation. 3. Choice and decision. 4. Reinforcement, command or fiat of the will. 5. Planning and elaboration of a program. 6. Steering of execution. This is the process of will in its complete and ideal form. Remarks, based on Assagioli's treatment of the subject. 1. There is a goal to be reached. One has to clearly define a goal or purpose to be realized. Some authors mention desire or wish as the starting point. I interpret that as a deep-felt desire for accomplishing something worthwhile. Simple needs are of a more biological nature and are not dealt with here. The faculty of imagination, ideation, vision, giving form to a seed thought, is involved in this. This is not enough to get things going. A general vision is just a starting point. An evaluation or valuation of the goal is necessarily ending in a judgment. Then a motive must be generated that provides a drive and intent for one to realize this purpose/goal. A motive is a dynamic thing. It is generated by the values we ascribe to the goals we want to reach. We perceive or believe the goal to be lofty, necessary, etc. 2. As there are many goals, we must choose between them. This establishing of a preference is the result of the function of deliberation, where we have to investigate or research several goals, our skills to realize these goals, our belief in our capabilities, the consequences of our choice, social desirability, acceptability, etc. Discrimination, clarity of mind, is necessary. Communicating our wishes and ideas to others may provide some feedback to us, sometimes leading to an adaptation of goals and preliminary plans. 3. Deliberation should lead to choice and decision. One has to wrap up, integrate, all the points mentioned at Phase 2, and come to a decision. 4. Then follows reinforcement of the choice and decision. This activates the creative and dynamic energies necessary to accomplish one's goal/purpose. The image of what is to be becomes dynamic now. It has been charged or colored by our intentions and values. Compare this with J.G. Bennett's commitments, described in his tome, The Dramatic Universe. 5. Planning and a program are needed. Methods of execution come into play as are considerations of time, circumstances, conditions. 6. At last there is the steering of the execution. Will is like the director of a play. It is the supervisor of the whole process. It looks to me that the whole gamut of human functions is concerned in this process, from will to imagination to motivation to discrimination to planning all the way down to the physical act itself. Quite impressive. The physical execution itself, sensory-motor function, is not a function of the will, but the steering of that part is. Note, adaptation of a plan will often be necessary as conditions and circumstances may change during the implementation of that plan. Perseverance and improvisational skills are a must. The final phase, not mentioned by Assagioli, consists of receiving the fruits of one's work, appreciating what has been done, relax, rest, and let go. The Dutch author Marinus Knoop, the discoverer of the creation spiral, which consists of 12 steps, mentions these 3 steps out of 12, or phases in his book. His work is now being used to help children and adults help to formulate their dreams or wishes at schools and in communities in the Netherlands. It is also used by some consultants in transformation work in the business environment. Knoop also mentions briefly that there can and will be blockages, potentially at every step, called negative emotions, but these can be a source of power, and deals, to some degree, with these in his latest book. He states that these emotions fulfill an important role as paradoxes surround the creative process. People often have difficulties with discovering or acknowledging their deepest wishes, giving form to it, and often lack faith in their own abilities or in support of their network. As to other blockages, one can think of people who can't decide, people who cannot persevere, people who cannot share and communicate. It occurs to me that his circle of 12 steps, as well as Assagioli's steps or phases, can be used as a diagnostic tool. A questionnaire could be developed in this respect. Assagioli deals with some of these issues in his work Psychosynthesis and gives a number of therapeutic exercises as well. Bringing a vision into manifestation. The following diagram, see my book, summarizes the process of active will. One can see how the human being, through active will, connects the spheres of vision, thought and action in the act of creation, form-giving. Example, a well-developed vision of a harmonious world to be realized, connects the 2 poles of goal and need or necessity. A link has been made between the realm of possibilities and the here and now, especially so, when concrete steps are being taken to bring the vision into realization. In other words, what can be or should be, and already exists as an idea, or seed thought, in the mental sphere, has now a pathway to the here and now through the formative and physical planes. It is the magic of creation. It is contemplation and consequent plan and action combined. It involves the grounding of spiritual forces to allow them to do their transformative work here on earth. That work can be anything, from developing alternative systems of money to establishing a healthy ecosystem, etc. Naturally, one will encounter resistance in society in the process of lofty work. Established interests will try to counter one's work. The necessity for building a base of interested co-workers seems obvious to me. The above diagram concerns primarily the work of Roberto Assagioli. Here, I have conceived a model, consisting of 4 layers nested as shown in the picture, with a preliminary mapping of the 6 stages of the active will. The picture shows the interpenetration of levels or spheres in which the psyche/mind operates. It is not a layered cake. It can be interpreted as follows. The human being desires something, evoked by some thought, this is the first stage, where imagination also takes place. It is internal to the human psyche, interacting with the world of ideas, thoughts, etc. The way I have formulated this means that in this diagram I do not discriminate between lofty aspirations that reach the higher, transpersonal strata of the mind and more personal desires which act only in lower strata. The second layer shows communication, networking, deliberation, valuing and choice. This concerns partly an interaction with the outside world, the social environment in a broad sense. It also entails a valuation and decision process. Feedback and input from the environment play a role here. This has been described above. For all the levels subsequent to level or layer 1, there is an overflowing of forces from one level to the next. The levels interpenetrate and resonate to some degree. The positive choice, go for it, do it, concerns the fiat of will. Fiat means let there be. This fiat activates, motivates, organizing vital forces, called pranas in Hindu lore, which flow as it were to the next, third, layer and phase of the creative process, planning, organization, etc., which have to do with making scripts or blueprints, structuring the executive act. It is very easy to recognize this phase. We all have had ideas for which we made plans. If you have some sensitivity, you will have observed the flow of energy that comes with the planning. Managers often display a lot of vital energy, busy as they are with organization. Form giving and structuring or planning events require flexibility of mind. Steer and follow, so to speak. One has to see the opportunities that exist or rise and gather the means necessary for accomplishing one's goals. That starts already on the second level, where one has to weigh the pros and cons of the cherished ideas, and is becoming urgent and actual in this phase. The fourth layer concerns the steering, control, of execution. Supervision of tasks to do is needed. This phase combines the previously prepared and planned parts and stages of the execution. Feedback arises where corrections in execution and plan are deemed necessary. This phase combines the influences of all the previous levels. Resistance and inertia on this level, as well as in the planning/organization phase, due to many factors, can cause a lot of headaches. Flexibility is needed. If you can't do something in one way, try another way. Learn to see different possibilities to do something and realize your goals. If one realizes a goal, or part of a purpose, one will get some satisfaction out of that. If it doesn't work out quite the way one has expected, there probably is a lesson to be learned. Some concluding remarks. Much could be added to the above sketch of the process of active will. To begin with, an elaboration of what the will consists of, its ontological status. It certainly looks like a directive force, so it must be of a substantial nature. This would lead me to speculate on the nature of consciousness, mind and thought, something I have done in my book on the mysteries of the human mind, available at archive.org and academia. edu. It includes some exercises that can help one to become clear in one's mind as to purpose and goal in one's life. The perennial tradition has a lot to say on these topics, including the nature of thoughts as presentations rather than representations, the observation of the stream of consciousness and how to direct one's mind to deeper or inner strata of being. Resonance with the self can be reached by conscious effort. That is a whole chapter in itself. It involves the use of the faculties of imagination and will and often includes focused group work as well to form a dynamic field of thought. It certainly involves a fuller manifestation of one's inner characteristic pattern. It is the road to becoming aligned with one's inner self, a goal of psychosynthesis, and thus becoming a force for bringing wholeness into and onto this world. This important theme is dealt with at length in my book, in the second article. Today, this knowledge is as vital as ever, and probably more urgent than at any other time in human history.